We're in your culinary book and we're in the last chapter and last section here. And we're going to talk about cookies. Of course, everyone wants to know how to make cookies. So first of all, before we get into cookies here, let's talk about this. It talks about making chocolate, creating chocolate, and what chocolate is. Chocolate is very important because a lot of cookies have chocolate in them, right? Chocolate is one of the most popular forms of candy around the world. It has long been a favorite for its flavor and versatility. For centuries, people have been enjoying chocolate, first by drinking it as a beverage and then by eating it as a candy. Although commonly enjoyed in these ways, still chocolate has been incorporated into a wide variety of foods and other drinks, whether the mixture with coffee or creamy mochas are melted with cream to make decadent chocolate ganache, or adding Mexican mola mole to the sauce to serve it with foods with chocolate. Chocolate can be used in nearly any meal or beverage throughout the day. Lots of ways to make chocolate, huh? Different methods of processing the cacao beans. So are the cocoa. I always say cocoa, but it's cacao beans that make a chocolate create a wide variety of products that can be used in multiple ways. After the cacao pods are removed from the tree, the cacao beans are removed and then fermented and roasted to develop their flavor. The roasted beans are ground to make cacao nibs, one of the least processed forms of the cacao bean that is able to be eaten. So the cacao nibs are then ground again to turn them into a paste known as chocolate liquor. And if compressed, the chocolate liquor will separate into cacao butter and cacao powder. Cacao butter is the main ingredient in white chocolate, which contains no cocoa powder. But can also be used in many other non-fat food products. So chocolate liquor is then packaged and allowed to solidify immediately after the second grinding process and creates baker's chocolate, which is often sold to candy manufacturers to allow them to sweeten and flavor chocolate as they want. So they have baker's chocolate. The many ways to produce baker's chocolate into forms most commonly seen are nearly endless. So whether you simply add the small amount of sugar to make dark chocolate or adding milk to make milk chocolate, you can suit any taste how you want to present chocolate. But after adding any desired sweeteners, flavors, or milk, manufacturers often temper the heat, cool, in the chocolate to make it shinier and help it stabilize it. Once this process is complete, the chocolate can be molded and filled and packaged and sold in places ranging from small grocery stores to chocolataries and confectionaries. You know, you can go, of course, sometimes there's even whole candy stores that have whole sections of chocolate candy. Yum. So, cookies. Okay, now let's get into cookies. Preparing cookies. So, what kind of equipment and pans do you need? So, you have to use the right equipment. It's very important. So, use pans or cookie sheets that are bright and shiny. Remember, for the pie, you had to have dull and glass pans. Now, for the cookies, you need bright and shiny pans for baking. Cookies baked on insulated pans will take longer to bake and are often softer and less brown. So, sometimes you have insulated baking pans. And so insulated baking pans take longer. But dark pans will produce dark cookie bottoms and cookies that are more compact. So you want more shiny cookie platters or cookie pans. So cookie sheets you call them. So pan preparation is also important. Only grease cookie sheets if the recipe calls for it. So for greasing the pans, use shortening or vegetable oil spray. Also, it says butter and margarine and vegetable oils will produce a greasy yellow film on the pans that will be very difficult to clean. So you want to use vegetable oil spray. Spraying the pans with vegetable oil is the best. Lining the baking sheet with parchment paper is a good alternative to greasing. since it prevents cookies from sticking to the pan and is disposable. So though you can use those parchment paper if you want. Aluminum foil can also be used for lining pans. If using foil, choose one that is non-stick foil. It's not going to stick to the cookies, right? Or stick to the pan, either way. So, ingredients and dough preparation. So you are going to choose the correct ingredients when making cookies and use the type of fat for the recipe, whether it be butter or margarine. Are usually they can be used in interchangeably. However, there'll be a subtle difference in flavor if you have butter or margarine. So remember to use only stick butter or margarine for baking. Only stick butter. So a vegetable oil spread may also be substituted as long as it contains at least 65% fat. So it has to be at least 65% fat for cookies. Products with lower fat content contain excess liquid and will cause the cookie dough to be too soft. So when you're using vegetable oil, don't use anything but 65% fat or it's going to be too soft for cookies. So often cooking recipes called for softened butter. To soften butter or margarine, leave it at room temperature for approximately 30 minutes. Then gently press the butter with your finger, and if an indentation remains in the butter, then it's softened, right? Other ingredients used in cookie making are important. Use all-purpose flour and measure the flour out. Too much flour will make cookies very dry and tough, and too little flour will cause cookies to spread out too much. So most recipes called for baking powder or baking soda, or both baking powder and both baking soda sometimes. And that leavens the dough so the dough raises it. So be careful not to use one instead of the other. So if it says baking powder, use baking powder. If it says baking soda, use baking soda. Don't interchange those or you'll get a soda. You say, oh, do I want to eat this cookie or do I want to brush my teeth? I don't know. They take like baking soda is not, you can't interchange them. So we'll come back to that there. So having, here's some really looking brownies here. Having well-made dough that is correct is the most important element of cookie making. When mixing cooking dough, cream together the fats and sugars first by beating them together with an electric mixer for several minutes. Just beat them together before adding, then you add eggs and flavorings and liquids to that mixture, and this will help aerate the dough, make it light and fluffy. Never taste the dough if it has raw eggs in it, because raw eggs can make you sick, right? So I want to taste that dough. Oh, it looks good, yummy cookie dough. If it has eggs in it, do not do that. So anyway, so it says cream together the fats and sugars by beating them with electric mixture, and then add eggs and flavors and liquids, and make it light and fluffy. Dry ingredients such as flour, baking soda, baking powder, and salt should be stirred together in a separate bowl. Those dry ingredients, stir them in a separate bowl, or sift them together so that they are thoroughly combined ingredients. Then stir the flour mixture into the wet mixture using an electric mixer again, and using the electric mixture. It says using electric mixer can overmix. So if you're using an electric mixer, it might overmix. So try not to mix them too much. So basically, you can mix them by hand. So you're gonna use the electric mixture, but the last stage here, you're gonna mix them by hand. So I think I said, you're beating them together, and then the last part, you're just gonna stir them together by hand so they're not so tough. I used to do the electric mixer all the way, but they don't want you to do that. So if making a recipe for the first time, bake one cookie as a test to see if the dough is correct. And if the cookie stays in a compact ball, the dough may be too stiff if it's like ball. Stiff dough can be remedied by adding a little more milk to it, up to 2 tablespoons of more milk. If the cookie spreads out too much, then it may be too warm, so refrigerate the dough for 30 minutes to make the dough less warm. And then if the dough is still too soft, add 2 tablespoons of flour. Don't add the flour unless you absolutely have to. So, but if it's spreading out too much, it might be that you just need to refrigerate it a little longer. Put it in the refrigerator so it makes it so it won't spread out so much on the sheet. So they're saying before you make cookies to test one out, especially if you're making a lot of cookies, so you don't have a lot of cookies that are not the right size that you like. So baking and storing cookies. So knowing the recipe yield and making the cookies the size that's recommended. So you know exactly how many cookies it would be. Making cookies either larger or smaller than the recommended size will change the yield and baking time too. So, follow how big should you make these cookies? And they could also affect the quality of the cookies. So be sure to make all cookies even in size and similar together will bake more uniformly. So make them all the same size. If you have some that are small, they're going to be different textures than the ones that are bigger. So try to make them all the same size. Even space cookies on the pan, so make sure you evenly space them. For the recipe, some cookies spread more than others, so you make sure they're farther apart so the cookies don't run together. Baking cookies. Before you begin baking, make sure the oven is preheated to the temperature indicated. Preheat the oven. Place cookies in the center of the oven for most even baking. So put them in the center of the oven. If you need to bake 2 pans at a time, place the oven racks in a way that divides the oven in thirds. So, and then bake 1 pan on each rack and then switch the pans halfway through baking time. Why would you switch the pans? Because you have the bottom and the top are going to be hotter. So you want to switch the pans around so that they all have uniform time of cooking. So switching the pans will prevent the top of the cookies on one pan and the bottom of the cookies in the other pan from becoming too dark. So, of course, the heat's going to be at the bottom and the top. So you switch them around so that the top and bottoms on each one will get cooked the same. So there are 2 ways to estimate how long a cookie should be baked. 2 ways: time and physical characteristics. So recipes give a range of time, usually such as 8 to 10 minutes. It usually takes 8 to 10 minutes for cooking cookies. A recipe may also give other characteristics like suggest color as golden brown texture or soft centers. Some other ways to check the cookies. Because cookies can burn really quickly, check them for doneness at the minimum baking time. So you can always bake cookies a little longer, but once they're burnt, you can't do anything about it. So, and burnt cookies sometimes have a bitter taste too. So some tender cookies will need to rest on the pan before moving to a cooling rack. This rest allows the cookies to set for a while. You leave them on the pan a little bit longer just to set before you take them off the pan, because if you try to take them off the pan, they may just crumble up, or not even crumble up, they may just goo up. So let them rest for a while, and so they can set, so you can remove them easier. Remove cookies to cooling racks then and allow them to cool before you store them. So using parchment paper or foil can speed up the cookie baking process. When the pan is removed from the oven, simply slide the entire parchment paper off, the entire, including the cookies, off the baking pan onto a cooling rack. So you can have parchment paper, just take the whole thing and slide it onto a cooking rack. And that way you don't have to take each cookie off and put it on if you use parchment paper. Another already prepared sheet of parchment paper with unbaked cookies on it can be slid onto the cooled cooking sheet. So you can put another one, just basically sliding them off. Always place cookie dough on a cool baking sheet. Cookie dough placed in a hot pan, if you're taking off on a hot pan, will spread too much before beginning and the cookies will be flatter. So always before you say you have a hot pan and you got the cookies just out and the pan's still hot and you want to make more cookies, be careful, because if the pan's still hot, it will cause the next cookies to be flat and spread out. So never put them on a hot pan. So storing cookies. Soft cookies need to be stored in an airtight container. Crisp cookies should be stored in a container with a loose fitting cover, which will help them minimize their crispness. Or minimize help maintain their crispness. Sorry, you want the crisp flavor, then you have a loose fitting cover. That's what it's saying. Once frosting has become firm, if you're frosting cookies, they should be stored with a piece of wax paper between each cookie to prevent them from sticking to each other. So if you have frosted cookies, you don't want them to stick to each other, so you put wax paper between them. Store only similar cookies together because the flavors of cookies can blend together, and crisp cookies will become soft cookies, and soft cookies, or tender cookies, will actually change their softness too. So always store the same kind of cookies together, not different kinds of cookies. Cookies can also be stored in the freezer and package them, excluding as much air as possible, in a container that will protect them from breakage when they're in the freezer. And baked cookies can be frozen for several months, and frosted cookies may be kept frozen for up to 3 months. And a raw cookie dough can be frozen about 6 months. So you can even make your dough and freeze your cookie dough. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? Everyone likes cookie dough. But just make sure when you're eating cookie dough, as for the content of the eggs, it's not good to really eat raw eggs. So that's about it for cookies. So I like this here. It says, whether therefore you eat or drink or whatsoever you do all for the glory of God. So cooking is amazing because you can cook for all different, for your family and friends and people and strangers, and you can actually, in the cooking process, you get to know people, and you can actually give the gospel out in the midst of cooking. So that's what I say. So here's some pictures there in the back of your book here. Here's a table set here. So this is the reference section, but you can look this in your book. You might need it. It says the ingredient substitution, how you can substitute some ingredients. Buttermilk, it says you can substitute with yogurt and lemon juice, and how to make buttermilk. Actually, how to make buttermilk. Butter, how you can substitute 1 cup with 1 cup of shortening the margarine. Eggs, 1 large egg, you can have 2 egg whites. Egg substitutes, it says how to substitute for the eggs, the ingredient eggs in the midst. And heavy cream. So I'm not going to go over this. So it says heavy cream because you won't remember it in your head. But you can look this up, and it says milk, if you're going to use evaporated milk or reconstituted milk. Yogurt can be changed to sour cream. It tells the exact amounts here. Fresh herbs with dried herbs. Remember, 1 tablespoon of fresh herbs equals 1 teaspoon of dried herbs. So, tomato sauce. 2 cups of tomato sauce would equal 3/4 cups of tomato paste if you have tomato paste. Just how to substitute. Chocolate, you have semi-sweet chocolate, 1 ounce of unsweetened bacon plus 1 tablespoon of sugar. So it says how to make semi-sweet chips, in the midst how to make these if you don't have an unsweetened baking chocolate there. So you can look at that. Here's some more ingredient substitution with baking powder. How baking powder, and to substitute baking soda, you're going to have to add cream of tartar to it, because cream of tartar goes into baking soda. And baking soda and baking powder in other ways, you can see beef broth, 1 teaspoon granules or 1 cube beef bouillon, and 1 cup of water to make beef broth. How to make beef broth out of your bouillon cubes, huh? Brown sugar and granulated sugar. This is kind of unique. To make brown sugar, you take 1 cup of granulated sugar and then add 2 tablespoons of molasses to it. I never knew that. Brown sugar had molasses in it. Chicken broth. You take a granule of cubed chicken bouillon and add it with water, a cup of water, and you'll get chicken broth. And cornstarch, 2 tablespoons of flour can make your 1 tablespoon of cornstarch equal. So corn syrup and granulated sugar plus 1 cup of water to make corn syrup. Honey, and you can see how you can substitute granulated sugar if you don't have honey, sugar with water or apple juice. Didn't know that. And self-rising flour, 1 cup flour, and 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. So these are all your substitutes if you need to substitute ingredients. Here's equivalents. So you can see 1 median apple is 1 cup sliced or chopped apples. Broccoli, 6 ounces, 2 pieces of broccoli. Carrots, just carrots, 1 medium carrot equals 1 cup of shredded. So you can know lemon or lime, 1 medium equals 1 1/4 to 2 teaspoons zest and 2 to 4 tablespoons juice. You see the strawberries, onto the strawberries, 4 cups sliced tomatoes, cheese, 4 ounces of cheese equal 1 cup grated cheese, cream, 1 cup or 1/2 pint of cream cheese equals 2 cups of whipped cream cheese, 4 eggs equal 1 cup. So you have 4 eggs. If you need a cup of eggs, you have 4 eggs to make 1 cup. Butter or margarine, 1 stick is 8 tablespoons. Then on to chocolate, 6 ounces of chocolate chips equal 1 cup. Flour, 1 pound of flour equals 3.5 cups. Sugar, you can see 1 pound equals 2 1/4. So you can just see pasta. If you have 6 to 8 ounces of pasta, it would be 4 cups cooked. And rice, 1 cup equals 3 cups cooked. So you take 1 cup of just uncooked rice and you cook it up, and it's gonna go three times 3 cups. So just to see what you're gonna yield there. Onto here, it talks about liquid ingredients, volumes, and metric conversions. So these are important to know because a lot of times they'll go by milliliters now. So if you have 1/8 of a teaspoon, it's going to equal 0.05 milliliters. Let's go down here, 1/4, 1/2, and you can see the milliliter equivalents. Onto, like say, 1/4 cup is 2 fluid ounces, or equals 60 milliliters. So 1 quart, to clear at the bottom, is going to be 32 fluid ounces and 960 milliliters. Just to know that. Say you had a cup, 16 tablespoons in a cup is 8 fluid ounces. So 1 cup is 16 tablespoons, 8 fluid ounces equals 240 milliliters. These are just important to know because sometimes you'll have to convert it over. You can look it up and back on a table, or you can look it up on the internet, whatever. So dry ingredient volume metric conversion. So you can see here you have a standard cup. Let's see, let's go down to say 1 cup. Let's do the bottom. 1 cup would be fine powder, would be 140 grams. A grain would be 150 grams. Granulated would be 190 grams. Liquid solids are 200 grams. Just finding out how much in a cup, how much a cup of that ingredient of grain, like one's flour, how much cup of rice or sugar or butter. These are the major ones there. How many grams this would be. If you need to know, convert it to grams. So it's just a conversion. Here's temperature conversions here. These you need to know if you have Celsius, and how you could look on a chart, or you can actually convert it, by equation mathematically. But I'm not going to get into that because that's going to be in your, when we're talking about your science project, converting Fahrenheit to Celsius. But we have 200 degrees Fahrenheit equals 95 degrees Celsius. Let's go to 200. Let's go, as you go up, you can see that it's going up all the way up to 500 degrees. So these are high temperatures here. But you can see the temperatures in Celsius are much lower as you convert it out. Dry ingredients, weight measures. There we have. To convert ounces to grams, multiply each ounce by 30 grams. So you can see if you want to convert grams to ounces, so, and pounds. So ounce and pound and gram, that's the conversions. So I think that's it. Let's look. Oh, let's go over the cookware here a little bit. This is fun. So you see, just so you know what each one, you see this is what a skillet or frying pan looks like. This is what a saucepan looks like. This is a double broiler when you put water underneath and you're boiling in a double broiler type. And you put that on whenever they say double broiler, that's what it looks like, double broiler. Here's another 2 saucepans, and here's a Dutch oven. So stock pot there. See how the Dutch oven looks there. a stock pot, just to know these terms. And they say Dutch oven, that's what it looks like. This is what a double broiler looks like. And this is what a stock pot looks like. That's where you're cooking, maybe stock pot you'd cook pasta in, so where you need a lot of water. Here's some bakeware. Here's a sheet pan, and here's a open-sided cookie sheet. There's a muffin pan there. Here's some cake pans. See how the cake pans look? They're all shiny, aren't they? Here's a loaf pan, and more cake pans. You can have all different sizes cake pans. Go down here, we have a roasting pan. See how the roaster is with the roasting pan? Here's the two pans for angel food cake and a bundt pan. They're pretty similar. See how the bundt pan, though, has the edges. The bundt pan is a little different, as you can take the inside out here. And the tube pan, here's a pie plate, really, and this going on to a casserole dish. Here's a casserole dish. So just to know what these are in cooking. We went over all these things. So here's your kitchen tools. A spatula, large spoon, you know that. You have a turning fork here. Here's a ladle. And here's going down is a slotted spoon. Where in soups and such, when you want to strain something on a slotted spoon. Here's a potato masher. We have those. Those are fun. Whisk. Here's a whisk to whisk, like whisking eggs in. A basting pastry brush, looks like a paintbrush. Here's a silicone spatula. So, which is nice because it doesn't melt, Here's the colander when you're going to drain fruit and such. You're washing grapes or whatever. You're going to wash a colander or washing lettuce in it. Here's a colander. So just to know what these are. Cutlery. Here we have a chef's knife. This is what a chef's knife looks like, a big knife. A bread knife has a serrated edge. Here's a utility knife here. Here's kitchen shears, and here's a carving knife. See, the carving knife is much more pointed, and long. And there's a chef's knife, a French knife, and a carving knife. And here's a paring knife, a tiny knife there. So just to know the difference of cutlery. So here we have a cutting board. Here's a bamboo cutting board. Here's a plastic cutting board. So here's a pizza cutter. Probably have that. Here's a grater. Here's a planter, they call it here. See how that looks? Here's a food chopper. Food chopper can chop all these different kinds of food in that little food chopper. Those are pretty handy. Here's your measuring and mixing. We have ingredient bowls, 3 different types of bowls. Here's a liquid measuring cup. Here's some dry measuring cups to measure dry, like flour stuff. So liquid looks like that, and the dry looks like that. And then we have the measuring spoons. See how the measuring spoons there? We have all these different measuring spoons. And here's mixing bowls. These are nice mixing bowls here, so as you see. Dry heating methods. So of course, these are pictures, and we went over these when we were discussing meats. You can see grilling here on one side, and on the right side here you see roasting, and how you're roasting meat, and then you have grilling. Grilling, this is actually broiling. I said grilling, this is grilling here. So you can see the difference between broiling. You're boiling it, that's when you put it in the oven. It's almost like grilling. And then we have grilling on the grill, and then we have roasting in the oven. So these are dry heating. All of these are dry heat. You're not adding any liquids to it. Then we have frying methods here. We have pan frying, the first top there. We have deep frying, where you're going to fry, here's a picture of frying shrimp, deep frying. And you have stir frying, different types of frying methods. Pan frying, deep frying, and stir frying. Moist heating methods. You have braising. You see how braising there? And you have simmering. Simmering there, like you're simmering a stew, or braising. So you see how braising is, you're adding to it. These are adding liquid to it. So braising, you're adding liquid in that top there. See how the liquid's added and simmering. Then we have stewing, like a stew. You're going to be adding moisture to that. and slow cooking, there with moisture in. Slow cooking, stewing, simmering, and braising. So we should have went over these when I was doing the meats and stuff, but I didn't know they were here in the back of your book. Whoops, sorry about that. I think that's the end. Let's go back and see for sure though. Yeah, that is the end. It's the end of your culinary class, and now you can do all of your, basically do all of your labs, which will be very, very fun. So let's go back here to the beginning. Your culinary books look like this. Culinary life skills. We're finished. So you go through each one of these and do the labs, and you'll have a great semester.